Hey there, welcome to episode 78 of the Quaggling Sand audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo. We're recording this at 4:07 p.m. on Wednesday, May 7, 2025. Today's topic, friends. It was almost going to be friends since, but I figured make it a one-word title, see if that helps. Episode 78, wow, time is passing, time is marching on. If you're not familiar with the Quaggling Sand audio program, by the way, this is a sort of an audio essay channel. I haven't really had any, I haven't had any desire, I guess. I haven't really asked people or I haven't been looking for guests for this. This is mostly just stories from my own past, my own stories. So I don't know that I would ever have guests, but I could. I'm not shunning anyone, but this is basically story time. The name of the audio program, if you're not familiar, is a technical term. You may call it pins and needles, but it's quaggling sand. That's what it's called when circulation returns to maybe your hand or your foot or your arm or wherever, when you've been laying on your arm or when you've been sitting on your leg, whatever the case may be. You got that quaggling sand. Think about it. It makes sense. So yes, this is an audio program about me. My stories and whatnot. We'll see if they are interesting and entertaining for you. Hopefully, wherever you've found this audio program, which is always a pleasant surprise, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, a summary, which I will read to you, and the links for today's episode. Now, I do have 4 shameless self-promotion links. I'm trying to decide how I want to push that back towards like 2. So I don't know if it's helpful to have all 4, but I do also have one link to an Axios article that is relevant to the end of this program. So we'll get to that in a moment. In the meantime, let's begin so that we can end. The summary of today's episode. Have you ever found yourself describing someone with a mention that you have known this person, perhaps you have been friends with this person for decades, since you met in the 3rd grade or some other backstory? How many friends do you have whom you have known for so long and so well? But you don't really think about that too often, do you? The links for today's episode, as I said, so let me think about this. The Buy Me an Update audio program is published on Mondays. It's a 5-minute microcast, updates on upcoming news and announcements, and a quick rundown on the previous week's audio program episodes. There are now 4. Technically, there are 5, and really, technically, there are 6. Each week, so a quick rundown. That's at buymeacoffee.com/danhugo/posts. But if you just visit buymeacoffee.com/danhugo, you will find my profile page there with links to all of my audio programs, GitHub projects, affiliate links for my favorite coffee beans, a little bit of biographical information, and a link to that posts section. The Buy Me an Update is only hosted on buymeacoffee.com. You're under no obligation to spend any money, by the way. This is merely a way for me to keep in contact with all my friends. The second pair, Ko-fi.com, Ko-fi, Ko-fi.com. Yeah, we could pronounce it coffee, but for visualizing that odd spelling, Ko-, the hyphen key being next to the 0, it might be a dash. I don't know. I keep switching back and forth, but I think hyphen, you'll maybe realize, that's not what I expected him to say. Hyphen. ko-fi.com/danhugo/posts. See, it's very similar format. There's got to be a way I could make this a quicker, less intrusive read. So /danhugo/posts for the coffee solo, non-scheduled. So whenever the thought strikes, no fixed length or topic area, no set day or days of publication. Could be more than once a day. Who knows? So you can check out Coffee Solo on ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/danhugo/posts, and take it from there. The AI Friends article, there were several about a week ago, and on or around May 2nd, as this one is. This is an Axios article. Basically, Meta's Mark Zuckerberg he's been making the rounds on various podcasts and whatnot. And each time he makes it sound like he's kind of pulling a number out of there. Like, I think everybody has, what is it, about 3 friends? As if that's just coming to him in this interview, but it's the same in everyone. So yeah, he's concerned that people don't have enough friends, and so Meta will create AI robots to be your friends. That's probably okay. What could go wrong? So let's get into it so we can get out of it. First, a word on old friends. Let us assume, to get things started, that you were once 5 years old and you attended kindergarten somewhere in the United States. So that's usually age 5. Maybe you were 5 years or so. Maybe it was in first grade. Who knows? Let's stick with the general idea. You almost certainly made at least one friend, or at least someone you would hang out with more than other students in the class. You would, I don't know if you had nap time or snack time or whatever. So usually kids at that age will find one person at least where they get along for whatever reason. You're linked at the hip. You go to recess together, all that stuff, all the good times. Now today, are you still in touch with that one friend, or at least one friend from when you were 5 years old? Now, some people will say yes. We might assume you continue to be friends for some time, unless one or both of you moved away or changed schools, or maybe you had a falling out of some sort. These things happen at age 5. Sometimes they're resolved by age 6. Who knows? Suppose you encounter this person. I'm going to fix a little typo real quick. Suppose you encounter this person today. You're out and about in your travels. You come upon this person who you knew, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And there's a third party involved. That one or both of you, maybe you have a friend with you whom you have known for as few as 1 or 2 years. You introduce this person as my old friend. I have known them since kindergarten. So have you? Have you really? I'm not saying you didn't, but have you kept in communications with this person? Some people really do have friends for that long and remain in contact with them. That's totally fine. I'm not judging that in any way, but are you presenting this person as a long-term friend or a long-term friend for nostalgia value? You know, there's a huge difference between, oh, this is my friend from kindergarten. We talk every day. This is my friend from kindergarten. We haven't spoken since kindergarten. Those are two different things, really. And so I've known this person since kindergarten. It has a different ring to it in each of those scenarios. This applies to a lot of friend relationships, not only those kindergarten bonds. So people you've met some time ago, you'll often hear people say, oh, we've known each other for 30 years. Yeah. How often have you spoken in the last 30 years? Like once or twice. And then what about the best days of your life? It's probably more realistic to have friends, or at least acquaintances, from the high school years. The best day meme is an old one. Not sure if hanging on to this in these modern times is, or if it's hanging on in these modern times. I don't know if we are hanging on to it in these modern times either. But for many of us, the high school years are formative. And so friends made in this time may have similar memories of those times and days, especially because if you went to the same school, you could become friendly with people in the same age group just because of like extracurricular activities. Maybe you met at a football game or a track meet, who knows? So commingling, cross-pollination between high schools, for example, or schools in general is always possible. You might meet a friend from across town because of a school activity. So that may be the case. But you have, especially at the same school or with those common extracurricular activities, for example, you might have common memories, shared experiences, and in fact, you may actually remain in contact with high school friends for some years later. This seems a little bit more reasonable just because you have an established personality and you have communication tools and you're going to go out into the workaday world or go off to college. So you are beginning to, as they say, you are beginning the journey of adulting. I'm looking forward to doing that myself. Sometimes high school friendships were formed years earlier in cases where students tend to stay together from an early grade level through a junior high school or upper grades in high school, in an elementary school, before high school. Fixing a little typo there. So maybe grade 6, 7, 8. So if you have a separate junior high school, depending on where you are, it might be 6, 7, 8, might be 7, 8, might be 7, 8, 9. Who knows? Everybody's different. School is not a standardized thing. So you make a friend when you're in kindergarten or first grade or something, and you're friends through junior high school, and then you go off to high school. So you've known this person for years. You could say that literally because you've been in classes with them almost daily, perhaps, and you have all that shared stuff. So in my case, I switched school districts in pursuit of a better education in a different school district. So I restarted that timeline in 7th grade, which is a good time to begin paying attention to interests for future academic and career pursuits anyway. Age 12 is a good formative time for yourself. In 10 years, you may graduate from college. It's a long time to figure out what you would like to do and how you'd like to do it. Now, the joke about the meme is that these are the best days until you have some more days after high school. And then you realize high school was probably something like a train wreck. If you pursued more education after high school or pursued any training, vocational, etc., or maybe you took an adventure, and I don't mean military, that's a separate thing, hang on. You probably encountered some interesting people with common interests and similar motivations, and you may even find that these relationships, whether they are friends or maybe you're more colleagues, acquaintances, or something less specific, these are maybe a little bit more durable. It really depends. I've known people that have friends from high school forever, and for high school sweethearts it's kind of a special case, but there are people I know from high school. And like I said, a lot of it is possible, but I will say it here. A lot of the people that I was in high school with had known each other from, this was in Phoenix, so like Washington Elementary School. They've known each other by the time they get to high school at age, 13, 14? They've known each other for 10 years. And they've been collaborating in one way or another in a classroom setting or out on the recess field or in extracurricular activities for 10 years. And they've not had separate lives to lead. They're all basically doing the same thing. So you're basically in a little habitat that encourages this close contact and connection. So I know people that I went to high school with who are publicly friendly with people I went to high school with. In other words, they post on social media, they're back and forth, and they're posting on Instagram. And I, for a while, was connected with some people. And so I could see, this person's friends with that person, and they're posting photos together and their meetup and whatever. So that's realistic. So more power to them. Now, military relationships, this is something you can probably see whether you're a veteran or not. Members of the military have a different path, I think, that the people they encounter and the people that they encounter on that path during basic training or officer candidate school or wherever, through their various assignments and different trainings afterwards and different scenarios in which they find themselves, maybe dangerous duty. All of these provide shared experience in a fairly unusual way. Since they are regimented in such ways, you might share an experience with someone you have never met, but you know, and they know. Basic training or officer training, you can always say, oh, we did basic when I was in ROTC in high school, I had an opportunity to visit the MCRD in San Diego, the Marine Corps Recruit Depot. It looked very similar to the scenes in Full Metal Jacket, for example. We participated in only a fraction of the week of a typical, 5 days, I think it was, of the typical basic training Marine recruit. I don't know if that's the proper term, but the Marines in training, I don't know, the people that are going there for the indoctrination into the Marines, the physical part, are there going through a lot more than we did. So always have that to look back on. You can always say, there's always the rivalry between branches, but we were in basic, or where did you serve? There's experiential timeline markers, and there's location markers, and there's always some commonality. Certainly real danger, like combat scenarios, are similar. Maybe you were part of the Berlin, certainly combat scenarios, or maybe you were part of the Berlin airlift or the Saigon evacuations, which were on April 30th, 1975. So happy anniversary for that. And maybe a rescue operation or any of how many known and unknown situations through history. Not everything makes the news. It may be that being involved in a secret operation that doesn't make it into the news makes for even more potential for bonding. And those can be very long lasting, which I think is understandable. So these experiences are not at all like going to high school. Remember we were in history and this happened? And you're like, yeah, but my military friends, we made history. And I can't tell you what happened. Military veterans are essentially in the family automatically. So we see veteran-owned businesses that advertise that fact, and other clubs and organizations and coordinated efforts of various types. I, for some reason, wrote types. With that inherent connection playing an integral role in these relationships. So, for example, here in the greater Vegas area, I believe the round number is 166,000 veterans, retired, separated, active duty. We have a couple of military bases here. So there is this sort of automatic connection. You can see it in the way people interact, and then some of the activities that are, support organizations and so on. This is a different way of interacting and maintaining relationships that are based on something more than, oh, we had the same class I've known this person since kindergarten. You've been through it, etc. That's a completely different thing. So military veterans are essentially in the family automatically, or you can say they're in the club. I don't know if family is the right word. I'm not saying every veteran is friends with every other veteran, so it's not like you have to be automatically best buddies. But there tends to be built-in trust thanks to the commonality of those experiences and the training and just knowing. And it's probably, in fact, the longest running case of if you know, you know. So I think that drives a lot of that loyalty or the sense of duty and the familiarity. And so just as I've seen for myself, and I'm sure you've seen something similar, veterans tend to be supportive of each other as though they are, friends forever, BFF. But really it might be based on something more substantial and more difficult to understand if you've not been through the training and the experiences and so on. So it's an interesting part of the population and how they interact with each other and so on. Most of us, though, have a workplace experience. In my experiences in a workplace relations are among the most fleeting, kind of the opposite of military, I think. Not to say that the best of friendships cannot be formed in a workplace. That's totally possible. But oftentimes work is about income to support outside of work life. You don't go to work to hang out with everybody at work, maybe. You may be working so you can support a family or buy a house or save up enough money to move away. So sometimes work is not about making friends. It's about making a life, perhaps. So merging work and life is not always a simple matter. I'm not even talking about work-life balance. I'm talking about literally how does work become a part of your life and then vice versa. Do you post? do you have a picture of your family on your desk, or do you keep your family life separate from work, etc.? It will be interesting to see how work culture evolves in these modern times. There was a time, and not too, let's see, I entered the job market in 1993. I think people that were entering the job market in the 80s probably had this, where you kind of expect to go work for one company for your life. They take a job and stick with it for years or maybe even decades. Relationships formed over that timeline they might well become friendships. I mean, you could work with somebody for 20 years and you're going to have more knowledge about each other than you have with someone you started working with 10 minutes ago, right? Obviously. And surely we have heard of company cultures with softball teams, bowling teams, or other competitive extra work activities that kind of their team building exercises, basically holiday parties, coordinated outings, and even attempts to bring family into the workplace. I myself recall the Honeywell Family Day in Phoenix, or wherever it was specifically in the Phoenix area, being quite interesting when I was about 6 years old or so. I was at Intel for only a short time by comparison. Some of the people there, maybe they took early retirement when they were having layoffs, as Intel is wont to do all the time now, or hit with the rule of 75 as planned. So the retirement age plus years of service equals 75. So they do that math and they're like, I'm out of here. I've been here for 35 years or whatever. They'd been with the company for decades, and so had their colleagues. So real friendships did form over these very long timelines. And because you're all working towards similar goals, you all want the company to be successful, you all want your stock price to go up, and so on. And there is legitimate connection that might continue after the Intel days come to an end, it could be any day now. Is this true of people joining Intel today? If we look at their future 20 or 30 years from now, I don't know. I think the world has become a very different place. And now Vegas. I've lived in Vegas for almost 12 years. That's not that long, really. And in the early days, I was always eager to hear from old friends when they were visiting the area, maybe for CES or other conventions and trade shows, maybe for a concert or some other celebratory gathering, maybe just visiting for a weekend, who knows. At some point, I realized that people I knew would only contact me when they were headed to Vegas and would ask for suggestions or other information. A local, I'm not a native, just a local by now, would know about day-to-day living in Vegas. What's the best, fill in the blank. The best part that I grew tired of quickly was the planning phase with my favorite statement along the lines of, hey, I'll be in Vegas next week if you're around, as if to suggest that I was going to be hanging out waiting for them to call for the week. Well, let me block that week out for you so I'm available for you. And then they do not follow through, of course. So I'm available for the whole week and then, hey, whatever happened? And I don't hear from them again. It sounds like a sad story, but this is human nature. That's the whole point of this episode. I used to try to track them down when they were here, or I'd try to follow up. Hey, did you ever come to Vegas? Oh, yeah, we were there. I didn't have time to call you. Okay. But then I remembered that I have better things to do, and that's the reality, right? That's the happy ending of that is, okay, I'm just not going to worry about it at all. Today, I barely respond to such contacts. Rather, if I run into someone visiting, maybe they're here for a trade show, that actually happens. For as many people who attend CES, maybe it's 140,000, 180,000, maybe during 2021 it was 10, but there's a strong chance that I will be walking by, hey, I haven't seen you forever. Okay, that's fine. If I only hear, and it's a serendipitous collision, by the way, those are fine. They're like a pleasant little surprise, and then you're like, okay, well, yeah, enjoy the show, take it easy, bye. If I only hear from people when they are coming to Vegas, but they do not respond or have a normal conversation or remain in my contact otherwise, any contact, yeah. Well, let me keep this episode clean and suggest they should find Lake Mead and jump in. What about social networking in general? The beginning of the end of civil discussion, civil interaction, maybe civilization itself. I think social networking, among the worst of them, Facebook, of course, but not the worst, have prolonged real and fake relations far beyond their viability. I must be Facebook friends with everyone I have ever known so they can contact me and what? Exactly. I was contacted by a Facebook for a high school reunion many years ago. By people I knew all these people who were reaching out to me, and I had not heard from them since high school, who were very excited for me to come to the reunion, whom I have not heard from since the reunion, which I did not attend. So take that for what it's worth. LinkedIn is obviously bad in that context, pretending to maintain connection with coworkers, present and former, classmates, maybe even some old friends, all using LinkedIn posts or Facebook posts or whatever. But LinkedIn is, I think, the most egregious to broadcast updates and some marketing messages and self-promotion and whatnot. They should just have a podcast. They can do that all day. And then not responding to the awful LinkedIn direct messages or to email or to other contact outreach, contact attempts. I wrote information here, but that's not contact attempts. Why is that connection valuable, right? Now, with parasocial relationships taking over the world, parasocial meaning you think you're friends because you know each other online. It's like people are friends with celebrities in movies, but not really. People believing they are friends with their favorite YouTuber or TikToker or whomever. The notion of online relations are only getting more odd. Do I want to add you on, insert your favorite social network? Do you want to add me? Do I want to add you? Probably not. The LinkedIn profile is useful for connecting with people met in some circumstances, but I am finding these have a shelf life as I prune away the many connections there and elsewhere, generally unresponsive. People who don't answer are not worth, like, hey, I'm connected to so-and-so on LinkedIn. But when I reach out to them or ask them a question or they never respond, so I'm not really connected to them. They're on a list in a database, but they're not actually present. So they're gone. I know it sounds harsh, but it's practicality. So I almost think that LinkedIn should offer like automatically expiring, like you have to renew your network connection every year or something. The connection should be essentially be temporary or expiring with an option to renew whenever, right? Every year or something. And then it should be user selectable. You can make it a year or 10 minutes, whatever. And now we get to the AI friends part. And so if you've read that article or seen the news or heard people talking about it, it's ridiculous, but it is the future. We are in the age of interactive AI where a moving image, you basically start with a static image and then it animates it in some semi-intelligent way. So it looks like it's making facial gestures or moving, looking at you, things like this. And you add in a realistic voice that can hold a conversation with you. Ooh, that's like reality. Having a text chat, so Chat GPT or whatever your favorite is, having that interaction with just text is easy. That's like a piece of cake. But an image that moves in such ways where you're not automatically certain that it's fake, like the uncanny valley, you've heard of that, right? Like there's something just off about this that doesn't. It seems like a person, but it's not right. Well, that's going away. They're just getting better at it. It's pretty practical to do that now. Zuckerberg is making the rounds as I record this, talking about how people need more friends, and Meta is going to provide them in the form of artificial intelligence renderings that will get to know you and probably always agree with you, or at least agree with you enough to maintain a conversation forever. With advertising, I'm sure. Add similar interest, curiosity, and in some cases romantic attraction, and you'll never need to go outside, much less meet anyone, much less reply to an email or pick up the phone if people still call each other, which they really don't. You never need to do any of those things. You can always have, like, the moment you wake up, your phone on your pillow beside you. It will, the accelerometer will sense the motion of the pillow, or it will hear the change in breathing with the microphone, or maybe it's just plugged into your brain directly, and it will come on and it will project images with the neural connection, or it will show you someone also good morning, how are you doing, or whatever. They can do whatever you want. You can make it do whatever you want, right? If that's not a friend, what is? Dave Attell, if you've never heard of Dave Attell, that's Attell. He's a comedian. He's pretty cynical. I've always enjoyed the work of Dave Attell, and he has a joke. He says, and I don't know if he invented this, but I do remember him saying it. So I don't know who wrote this joke initially, but he said, a friend will help you move. A good friend will help you move a body. So yeah, your AI friends will certainly do that if they're robotized, if they are manifested in a moving, sort of bipedal humanoid form. And then we'll see what happens with the world. Honestly, I think people will buy into the AI friend idea initially, perhaps for the same reasons that they post on Facebook or X or now Blue Sky or wherever, with updates about their pets. And I literally saw this the other day. I mean, my cat just walked by with some string in her mouth. That's a post that I read. I can't unread it, and that's why I don't even bother with these sites anymore. Or they have some cries for attention. I think that's basically like, hey, I need someone to respond to me. I want to get that dopamine hit of the likes. I need someone to reshare this. I'm going to post a picture of my cat looking at me, and then, I don't know, it could be anything. Cute. Your AI friends will always be there to ooh and ah at your pet stories, will always like your pictures and posts, and will always contact you first if you want them to. Of course, my AI friends will still only contact me when they're headed to Vegas, and then they won't tell me when they're actually here. So there you go. It sounds sad, but it's actually so much easier to not have to track drama and keep in touch with people who don't want to keep in touch and so on. It saves a lot of time, a lot of energy. And you can focus that on things you actually want to accomplish, to maybe run into more interesting people than you have thus far. So interesting times, I think. I think the evolution of social and parasocial relationships in the age of AI, in the age of very realistic, absolutely responsive algorithms, essentially, that will always remember your story, that will always be inquisitive, or I said curious earlier, so they'll always want to know more. Oh, tell me more about the time you were looking at the wall with the paint drying, and they'll be fascinated to hear what you have to say and so on. So yeah, it'll be a huge ego boost to have that level of interest. You'll have this, you'll always have someone to describe your woes. You'll be able to ask good questions, and it'll probably go find out answers for you, and you can go from there. It will be everything you always wanted. And then we'll see what happens after that point. I kind of wonder sometimes, the Fermi paradox. Where is everybody? What if there's so many planets and so on? Why is there no alien life, and why have we not encountered it? Where is everyone? And I'm kind of convinced that they either all get to the point where they have AI friends and they stop wanting to go outside and travel the universe, or maybe they all maybe like they have their own version of cryptocurrency, and they end up bankrupting the entire planet with one person having all the cryptocurrency, and then they get murdered, and then their AI friends tell them that was not a good idea. Let's go watch a movie. So either way, they'll never actually find us. So we'll get there eventually. That is my story for today. To all of my parasocial friends, thank you so much for listening. And yeah, Vegas is a good place for solipsism and doing your own thing. And so it's actually a good fit. But if you're coming to Vegas, maybe I'll run into you, maybe I won't. You don't have to tell me. Thank you so much for doing the thing. Take care. Until next week.